now only going if it's a critical situation, emergency, because of these strong winds. Again, we're here now inside. We have to stay inside until it's safe enough and these winds die down here. But this is where we're getting the strongest of the winds here in Polk County. Back to you, Dennis.
I'll tell you that right now. I think what I'd like you to do, if you could, in talking with some of the EOC folks, if you hear of any additional damage, because we got a lot of reports of winds close to 100 miles an hour. You get 100-mile-an-hour winds, you're going to get some damage. At the very least, you're going to get some trees down. But sometimes it's very hard since the EOC, excuse me, first time in 12 hours. I can't believe that. With that counterclockwise flow, you know, around Lakeland, it's pushing away, but because it's still 12:30 at night, well, there you go. There's, what are we looking at right there? So we're getting some flooding now. Now that's interesting because
somebody's
the wind,
Facebook Live, I believe. Yeah, this clearly is somebody's walking around in maybe some flood. They're just going around taking a look and see what's going on.
I'm still not so sure they're going to be getting a ton of flooding there. The wind is still offshore. I am sure what they are going to see is some stuff broken and some trees down. I mean, this was a very strong, it was a big area too. It wasn't just a small little cluster. It was half of Polk County that was rotating back. And the folks who are listening right now. Definitely weaker than it was before, but I would say a diagonal from northeastern Hillsborough County, maybe about 30 miles wide, okay? So from maybe Plant City up toward just south of Zephyr Hills, there's your diagonal, and you go all the way across southwest. So you're going northeast to southwest. There's a band of about 70 to 75 mile an hour wind gusts. Now that is rotating counterclockwise, so it's rotating back toward the coast. So that means this area, while it's weakened, we'll have to watch it, and it's definitely coming back toward the southern half of Pasco and Pinellas. And eventually, as IRMA moves north, the center of IRMA right now continues to pull north, it's going to take this wind along with it, and then we'll see if it's going to move into Pasco, Hernando. But let me look at a radar right there. What that is that's just rain. That is extremely heavy rain, and the flooding has not been an issue because that, again, earlier today, all of that water got pushed out. But now we're coming to the point where the winds are starting to come around. They look like they're maybe north in Pinellas, and very soon they're going to go northwest. The minute you see a W in the wind on any locations around here, that W means a west wind, and that means the water will start coming back in. Now, that's a great shot there. I mean, you got the wind coming in over at Ray J. There was a guy in the newsroom who was swearing that light was going to fall at some point in time earlier on in the week. That was his prediction. I scoffed at him. I said, I'm sure they've got that rated for a Cat 5 or maybe even then some. But we did get an announcement that at 1 o'clock today, there will be a press conference to talk about storm surge. Chris, was that in Hillsborough County? Meeting. Okay, never mind. It's a meeting in Manatee County at 1 o'clock to talk about the surge and what's going on. And at that point, up until now, they had not heard of any reports of any surge. But the winds, as we look at radar, the winds are just now coming out of the west in southern Pinellas and Manatee County. You can just begin to see it. So I am so interested in seeing how fast that water comes back into the bay after it came in today and how much higher it will be. But the good news is the forecast of a 5 to 8 foot surge has been downgraded to a 2 to 4 foot surge. So that is definitely good news. And there's again outside Tampa, I believe. Is that right? New Tampa. All right, so there's the first time we've gone to New Tampa that I've seen at least. And that's winds, that's winds gusting 50, 55. That's not terrible. I mean, but just imagine twice that. That's what it was in Polk County a little while ago. So I think that hour to 90 minutes in Polk County will end up being the heaviest wind that the Bay Area will have experienced. And I think tomorrow morning, we're going to see a lot of folks. I'm going to sit down for the first time, like 12 hours in this chair right here. I think we're going to actually start to see the damage in Polk County will be the worst in the area based on the current track. That's because I don't think Citrus and Hernando and Pasco are going to have that kind of number because the storm continues to weaken. Guys?
All right. Thank you, Dennis.
We've been looking at that video outside too, and Dennis is going to keep working those numbers over there, keep on looking at those maps, and kind of letting you know where everything's going, because we got a few more hours of this. So when it's really bad, and then hopefully we breathe a sigh of relief.
And we're about to bring you, from what I'm told, video from Raymond James Stadium of a transformer exploding. Oh, okay. He doesn't want me to promise it. I've already promised. So there you go. I promised it, and you came through. Thank you, Chris May. Yes, this is right at Raymond James Stadium, and it's a transformer literally blowing up, and we got it on camera. There it is.
There it is. And you know what's interesting about this is that, this isn't the most exciting video in the world, but I will tell you this. Everybody on Facebook or Twitter tonight is saying, I keep hearing all these pops outside, these loud pops, these loud pops. Of course, they haven't seen what those loud pops are.
Also, it has
exactly
to
what that is.
be incredibly frightening when all of a sudden they're outside of your house and you don't know what it is.
Well, of course. And then you hear Paul was talking to that woman on the phone
in
Lakeland and saying you're hearing all this popping going on. You're in the dark. You don't know what's going on outside. You hear all these things hitting your house. These are the trying hours.
Why there's a curfew in place.
Exactly.
And speaking of curfews, many places have them, including Citrus County, and that's where our Maricela Burgos is. We're going to go to her in just a moment. What is this from? From Lakeland, just from 14 minutes ago to be exact, that somebody shot, and it looks like the wind is howling and really, really strong. And as Dennis had mentioned, they were under a wind advisory,
It was actually an extreme wind advisory.
Extreme wind advisory. And Dennis, look at those winds.
It expires now. It expired at 12:30.
Well, and this was 14 minutes ago, so I guess
15 now.
It was maybe 15 and a half.
Yeah, they're getting it though. They are getting it out
And
there.
it's just about over for Lakeland. I'm looking at it right here. That right there had to be a wind of at least 85. I mean, that looks like about 85 mile-an-hour gusts. At one point, the highest forecast would have been about 100 mile. I got a question for you guys. This is something a lot of folks on Facebook have been saying. When I left for work today, I really looked at my house and I wondered if it was going to look the same way when I got home.
Yeah. I did that 2 days ago when I evacuated 2 days ago. I literally looked at it and I thought, if this is it.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I just said a little prayer and hoped that I'd come back and it would look somewhat the same.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of folks felt that way, even the folks who were staying put and didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
And I can't imagine anything. I mean, these are, people are obviously petrified of hurricanes anyway with good reason, but a hurricane in the middle of the night with no power, I really can't imagine anything more frightening.
Right.
And hearing all those noises and not knowing if that's a tree limb or a full tree getting ready to come down on your house.
And you're in your safe room, hopefully, under a mattress, hopefully.
Yeah.
Frightening.
The other thing too is so many folks in our viewing area and listening to us and watching us have kids. And, the kids are in the house right now and listening to all this too. You obviously, as adults, it spooks us a little bit as we're, sleeping in bed and hearing this storm go overhead. But for kids, I got to imagine this has got to be pretty terrifying for them too.
What are we looking at, Chris?
I think
Where's
that's
this
New
from?
Tampa. I seem to remember that being New Tampa. That looks like it at least. And oh wow, now is that?
I think the light came down. Isn't this at Raymond James Stadium across the street?
I believe these are photo opportunities.
Oh, photo opportunities. I think because the light finally fell. The light finally fell.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
I think I predicted it. It was about 30 minutes later.
Can you see? Yeah, it did. Can you see you can see the rain out there, kind of out past where they're at. Still coming down.
But it's still not flooding. And that's just what's crazy.
It is crazy, especially because the ground is still so saturated, right?
Well, it is, but remember that saturated water drains into the rivers and drains eventually into the bay and into the Gulf. So when the wind blew all that water out, it left a vacant area for this rain to go in.
Right.
It's like Irma actually helped us out by blowing this out before the rain came, and then once the rain ends, she's going to allow the water to come back in.
And it won't be nearly as strong, and so the surge won't be as high. Incredible.
I mean,
is this a phenomenon that you could have predicted or thought that would have happened with all this?
I laugh at that one. We couldn't even get the track right on this one. I mean, it went back and forth for 5 days.
But I mean, Dennis, truly, the track was so fickle. I mean, I felt like when we were watching other hurricanes along the way that it just didn't seem to go left, west and east and west. I mean, it was. You didn't know which way it was turning.
I pride myself on my background in tropical meteorology, and honestly, This one, I just put my hands up in the air like, okay, I give up. You win. You know, because is he taking the light with him?
Are they really?
They're keeping the light?
No, I don't think they are. No, they're just walking on.
Hey,
Oh, they dropped it off.
Okay,
Okay, very nice.
You're being watched, by the way, whoever that is.
Question is, what are they out
Yeah. Yeah, they just
in
they
the
put it
severe
on the side of
weather
the road.
anyway?
Yeah.
The curfew is in place. Go home.
But what we were talking about, and I'll show this picture again too. I have never, I mean, meteorologists, buddies of mine who I've talked to, and people that I've seen online.
These folks are picking up yet another light. You know
they're
what?
getting it
I
out
think
of the
they're
road,
actually getting it
actually.
out of the roadway.
They are.
Or you're going to see it on eBay
They're
tomorrow.
being good Samaritans and clearing the road. So when folks get up in the morning to drive down Himes Avenue, they will not be running over
appreciate that.
a light. Absolutely. So we appreciate that. I don't know that they should be out there, but it is nice that they're clearing up the road.
So Dennis, this one has frustrated you, to say the least.
Oh, I mean, it's, you know, it's our goal to help people make decisions to keep their families safe. I mean, that's why we do this. And this hurricane, the models failed just as miserably as everybody else did. I mean, I always talk about how accurate the European model is, and it went from the West Coast to the East Coast in 12 hours, and that just doesn't happen. So today, what was just so interesting is I've never in my life seen a hurricane empty out water from a bay in such a large scale. I mean, if you go right now, if you guys go to WSI real quick, this is a picture that I was showing earlier. This is the Mobile Bay. This is Mobile, Alabama. Right. And the storm that was over South Florida cleared out Mobile Bay. And if you look at the top right side of that, that's a battleship that's grounded because the water got taken out 1,000 miles away. So this storm has done horrific things in the islands. It's done some of the most, you know, I mean, it was a category. Remember the little thing that was going around just before this storm got strong, and somebody was saying this is going to be a category 6, and then a lot of people got all up in arms. There's no such thing as a category 6. Buddy of mine's an FSU grad, is his PhD in meteorology. He did an algorithm and figured out that technically this storm really would have been a 7 if there was such a thing based on the scale.
Right.
So Irma did some amazing things, most of them negative. But yet today, when you look at how that water went out and then cleared out a path for all the rain, and then now the rain is going to be winding down and the water's going to come back in, that's just crazy.
I do have a question on that. Is it possible, and I'm no meteorologist, you're the scientist here, but I'm going to give you this question. Did the cold fronts up north have anything to do with the hurricane going west to east and east to west, as that cold front in both directions?
Kind of, sort of. It did at the end. What happened is, as Irma was going west across the ocean, there was a big ridge going right along with her. And that ridge blocked her from going north. So for a period of time, we kept thinking the models were insisting that that ridge would finally end and she would come around it and go up to the east side of Florida. And then a little bit later, the model said, no, she's not quite going to do it yet. The ridge is still pretty strong. It's going to make it into the central part of Florida. And then last night, the models came back and said, no, the ridge is still pretty strong. It's going to go all the way to the west coast of Florida, just offshore. And what really ended up happening is somewhere in between. And that cold front that Wendy talked about, that trough, is what helped to dig that hole on the left side, which allowed the storm to come on up. So the two usually work hand in hand when you're trying to determine where a hurricane's going to go.
Well, you've been talking about Polk County and the severe weather there. We've got Andrea Lyon in the middle of some of that severe weather and the great wind that's out there now. Andrea, is it blowing pretty good still?
We're going to me, right? I just want to make sure. Yeah, we're here in Winter Haven. We're inside of our hotel, the Sure-Gale Hotel in Winter Haven. I, of course, had a hard time sleeping, waking up to surges of light, surges of power. We were hearing things crashing outside. I can't see outside because it's so dark, but all I hear is whistling wind and things crashing outside. We're not sure what it is. I'm going to put the microphone up to the elevator right now. There is some creepy, eerie wind howling through this elevator in our hotel right now. It says, you know, it's closed down for sure, but I want you guys to listen to this. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear that at all. It picks up at some points. I also woke up to people coming out in the hallways. It's dark. We've got security lights on. We have one woman here who says she only felt safe coming out in the hallway. And Crystal, tell me what you're waking up to. I mean, we're kind of going through this together.
Just like lots of wind and rain crashing on the window. My window at one point started like flexing, like I thought it was just going to crash in, you know, so I just walked out here to the hallway. I feel a little bit safe, and then the elevator started making that crazy noise. I hope it passes through. I'm glad it's not as bad as it was supposed to be. So
I was saying the same thing. Thank goodness that it's kind of down. I don't know if we're at a 1 or 2 right now. I've been sleeping. But I know a lot of people have been evacuating to hotels. Did you find yourself in that situation too?
yes, I did. I actually had to come out this far to get a hotel room. They're all booked up over in like the Winter Haven area by the hospital. Like they're all booked up. I could not find no room. This is the only room I could find. And it's open right now.
I don't know if this is too personal. We had a mandatory evacuation of mobile homes and such. Was your home just not too safe enough?
No, it was just there's a lot of trees around. You know, I was just not wanting to let anything crash on me. You know, I wanted to come to a hotel room. I feel a little safer in a bigger building other than a little house surrounded by trees.
Tell me what you've been hearing right now. You know, just out here, and you know what you're kind of feeling right now.
Well, it sounded like the elevator was crashing in. There was a lot of bangs on my window. I'm not sure what that was. I can't see out the window, but I mean, I'm gonna say I'm feeling a little scared, but I feel like it's just gonna blow right over. You know, hopefully it's gonna blow over and not get no worse. So.
Absolutely. We hope that you stay safe. You were also telling us that there was transformers blowing outside. Okay. I didn't wake up to that, but I'm going to take you inside of our hotel room quickly here. It seems like the worst of it maybe have gone through over us, but I know the winds have just been howling in here. Are we able to go outside? Safe enough? We're kind of going out to the balcony. It is, wow, that door is being sucked outside. This is the winds we're dealing with right now. I don't even know if it's really safe to go outside. So we've got a balcony out there, and yeah, absolutely. I don't think we're going outside right now. So easy, shut that door. I guess we'll send it back to you for now. We'll come back and show you some more as we kind of go down to the lobby, see who's waiting out there, guys.
Okay. All right, Andrea. Well, you stay safe out there. We do want to mention the city of Lakin actually just tweeting out that a lady with a 10-month-old baby was found in a ditch with 4 feet of water, but they were able to save both the mom and the baby, and they are now okay.
Yeah, so we don't know if that was a car or if they just found them in a ditch.
Yeah,
not
it's
sure
a little
what's going
confusing.
on.
If they were in a car and or it sounds like maybe she was walking with the child.
Well,
but
when you try to explain it in 140 characters or less, it gets a tweet. So
we'll try to look into it and see if we can find more information.
See if we can find out more on that too. I want to go and check at the top of our rooftop here at ABC Action News with Justin Bruce. He's reporting up there for us all night long. A lot of wind, a lot of rain last time we checked in with you. What's going on, Justin?
Yeah, a lot of both of those things. One difference since you checked in with me 10-15 minutes ago, we've started to see some flashes of lightning, and Dennis, I think we'll be able to confirm that. I told you earlier that we had seen several power transformer flashes, blue, green, sort of low in the sky. That was certainly eerie and ominous, but we have seen some lightning strikes off in the distance. Let me see if I can sort of give you an illustration. The winds, and you're experiencing this where you live, they come, they go. Right now, not too bad as we illuminate the street signs, the stop sign there off in the distance. So not too bad, but tell you what, every couple 30, 45 seconds, the gusts pick up strong enough that I find myself having to hold on to the railing here. And we're just across the street from Ray J from the football stadium, and things pretty dark over there. The street lights actually went off the last time we were live on the air. Good news, they've come back on, so that happened fairly quickly. We're not too far from what appears to be a pretty large power substation, so generally speaking, the closer you are to those, the more likely you are to hold on to your power. But it was kind of interesting to see the lightning off the distance. But yes, to summarize, the wind, very, very intense, about as intense as it has been all evening, and the rain just relentless, will not let up. Big drops blowing in sideways. Seems like from all angles it kind of swirls around our building here at ABC Action News. But that's the situation right now. We'll let you know if it's going to get better or if it's going to get worse here as we head through the next 15 to 30 minutes. But here in Tampa, meteorologist Justin Bruce for ABC Action News.
All right, Justin, thank you. We want to go to Citrus County now, where Maricela Burgos is standing by to give us an update on what it's like where she is. Maricela?
Up.
You know, it's still windy and very rainy, and honestly, I'm a little shocked right now because I saw someone walking down this road all the way down there. I don't know if you can see her. She has her raincoat on, and she was wearing a dress and just walking in the middle of the road, and I tried to shout out at her, you know, if she needed any help. Obviously, I don't think she heard me. It's so windy, and she's all the way down there, but I was shocked. I mean, I'm surprised to see anybody out on the road at this time when everyone should be either at a shelter, at home, you know, somewhere safe. We're talking about power outages. I have this map here so you guys can see it. Several Duke Energy customers in the state of Florida, obviously up here in Citrus County, that don't have power. I mentioned that because across the street here in the government center, you see it's pitch black down there. In the distance, I thought I heard generators that kicked in. And then over here, we have power at this assisted living facility. And the power did flicker on and off several times, so we were worried here that maybe we would lose power, but I don't know if you can tell here by the light. I mean, it's still kind of, you know, blowing in the wind. But the next concern after power and after this goes away, after Hurricane Irma passes through, is going to be assessing what Citrus County looks like, how many, obviously, power outages there are down power lines, trees, debris, you name it, and of course, flooding. So that's what we're going to be doing. Not tomorrow. I said tomorrow because I did start my shift yesterday, and so today, later today, we're going to be checking on that. I know Jared is going to take over for me in a couple of hours, and then he'll be talking about what he sees out here, and then together tomorrow or today we'll be checking out what it looks like in Citrus County. So right now, at least, it seems a little bit quieter, and it's kind of hard to tell because it does pick up here and there, but we are safe here at the assisted living facility. Reporting live, Maricela Burgos, ABC Action News.
All right, Maricela, thank you. I think Dennis wanted to talk about the last interview with Andrea Lyon and that woman, that little girl she was talking to.
I thought that was,
Haven, right?
that was so interesting because did you hear what she said in the interview? She said that the windows were flexing, like literally caving in, and that's typically what they do just before they pop with the pressure differences or with just the wind. And that's the first time I've heard anyone describe that from this storm so far today. So it just leads me to think that she probably had winds earlier on. I mean, it's been a while since they've had that, maybe almost an hour ago, but close to 100 miles an hour. So when we had that extreme wind warning that was in effect, and by the way, it's no longer in effect, but I'm still looking at the heaviest winds. In fact, I'll go ahead and tell you exactly where they are right now. Looks as though that they are right this second from around Temple Terrace, east about 10 miles, and then back to the west toward Carrollwood, and then right on down toward downtown Tampa, over toward the bay, and then across the bay. So the bridges, I wonder if we have a shot of the, well, it would be the Skyway, it would be the Howard Franklin. If we could get a shot of the Howard Franklin, I'm sure it's dark, you wouldn't be able to see anything, but it's really windy there right now. And then into Clearwater, FDOT cams are limited, so we can't get, because it's really, really coming in right then. And then over in Pinellas, it's from maybe around Dunedin South through Clearwater, over toward Pinellas Park, Seminole, Largo area. Those are the regions showing the heaviest wind. The wind probably 60 to 70 miles an hour. And Citrus, Hernando, it's definitely not quite as bad right now. Now, Sarah Hollenbach is in St. Petersburg, and she's actually getting some of that wind right now, or right on the fringe of it. I'm guessing about maybe 50, 55 miles an hour right this minute. So, oh, yep, look at her hair.
It sure feels like it's going 55 miles an hour. There's been a lot of points, Dennis, where we've literally had to grab onto this concrete and sort of stagger our feet like this in order to hold on. This pickup truck right here has been bouncing up and down in the wind. It looks okay right now, but man, it has just been kicking us out here. There's actually a storm surge warning right now in St. Pete, but we've been checking out the streets down here and they actually look really dry. And I can tell you, I'm really not getting any rain right now, just this crazy wind. Now, I also have a story to tell you. I just talked to one of my friends. She lives in St. Pete. She actually had a transformer blow. She said that it started a fire on her roof. She called 911 and they told her it was going to be 10 to 20 hours before they could actually come out and check it out. So she and her boyfriend are actually trying to put out a fire on their roof right now. That's very scary here in St. Pete. So not something that a lot of people like to be dealing with. You know, you're trying to sleep and you've got this huge wind just blowing all kinds of objects towards you. So really scary. That's why we had to take shelter in this parking garage so that we wouldn't have any objects blow into us. We've seen some stop signs even just tumbling in the wind. So definitely a scary situation out here in St. Pete, but luckily we're safe right here where we are, and we're hoping that everybody else is staying safe too. Reporting live in downtown at 1st and 3rd Street on top of a parking garage, I'm Sarah Hollenbeck, ABC Action News.
Yeah, Sarah, and she's right. The rains are winding down in Pinellas County. I mean, there's a look at the radar, and you can see the center of IRMA is now just about north of I-4. It's in Polk County, and it's really pretty much about the same in Hillsborough County right there. So that means areas to the south and west are going to start seeing that wind come around. And within an hour, that's when we're going to start worrying about that surge issue. If it actually materializes or not, we're just going to have to wait and see. Got a 1 a.m. update for power outages. TECO now 272,000 people without power.
What's up?
Duke Energy 639,000.
Hey,
so right
what's
there
up?
you do the math. That's 900,000 people just right there. In Manatee County, 105,000 people without power. Sarasota, 159,000 people without power. DeSoto County, 14,000 people. And Charlotte County, 66,000 people. And the guy who is giving me these updates, obviously, is a Cowboys fan because I got the final score. The Cowboys did defeat the Giants 19-3 in Sunday Night Football. So there you go. And the Bucs start next week. And by then, this thing will be a thing of the past. Most everybody can clean up and we can enjoy some football on a Sunday, right?
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
Chris Welch has been in a hotel there in North Tampa off of Dale Mabry, getting close to the original Carrollwood area, if you will.
Near Waters.
Near Waters. And Dennis was saying that the Carrollwood area was starting to get some of the heavier winds there in a little bit. So, Chris, what's it looking like up there?
Yeah, I mean, for a while, really within the last 45 minutes to an hour, things had been, maybe about an hour ago, things had been at sort of their peak. Maybe a half hour ago, things had been we felt some of the heaviest gusts that we felt all night. Take a look around right now, though. This palm tree's been swaying back and forth throughout the night. We are still getting those big gusts, but I can say it doesn't seem like it's come as frequently, as often as it was for the last several hours or so. You know, right now, as I'm saying that, of course, we're getting another one of those big gusts coming through here. Take a look at the parking lot here in the distance here at the La Quinta. Things still looking a little bit hairy. You know, we're certainly not out of the woods yet, of course. We're going to be waiting to see, you know, how the back half of this storm pushes through here. And as I say that, we start to get pummeled, of course. So these bands start to come through and we just get hit. You know, the flags have been spinning up in the flagpole all night. We've seen a couple transformers go. Again, power flickered here several times earlier tonight, but within the last couple of hours, we haven't seen any of those power surges. So that's one good sign here. Again, people seem to be staying inside. The hotel guests that were hunkering down in the lobby, sort of watching us, watching the storm, they have, by and large, gone to their rooms. It looks like there's a lot of lights on in the hotel rooms. We've got people not in the lobby anymore, so it's very quiet here. People inside, people staying inside, exactly what emergency officials want people to do at this point. So we're going to be joining them as soon as this live shot is over. We're going to head back inside, and that's where we will ride the rest of this storm, and we'll be back out to talk to you when conditions change again.
All right, stay safe out there. You're looking at a TECO map of all the outages right now. Over 275,000 people still without power as we speak, and we probably anticipate that number to go up as the winds continue to howl in many of our counties.
That's about 40% of their customers right now that without power, and that's something that they estimated last night. They said probably are in the 35 to 50% range is what they were estimating folks would lose in this storm. Their customers right now close to 40%.
And as we heard, FPL as well as Lakeland and Duke Energy, also a lot of folks out of power. 500,000 total across the state. So that's still a lot of folks who don't have power, and we're still not done with this storm yet.
We still have some heavy winds out there, but not the winds that we kind of thought 24 hours ago that we would get. So, 60% of people, with TECO customers at least that we're talking about here, that still have power. I mean, it's pretty
not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah, you're one of them too.
I'm one of them. I just checked my cameras. I go, my lights are still on.
Yeah,
this
that's a good
great.
sign. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we want to go to Pinellas County now, where Simon Chakek has an update from just moments ago. Take a look.
Hey everyone, we're experiencing really powerful wind surges out here right now. This is in Pinellas County in Largo. I'm wearing protection on my eyes. This is not a fashion statement. This is designed to protect from flying debris. You can see the water just kind of surging, kind of swirling around. Behind me is a parking garage. Gives you another view. This is a government parking garage, and we're surrounded by a couple of buildings that are giving us some pretty strong cover. But you can see the wind just sort of sends that rain surging in every single direction. A lot of powerful forces that we're experiencing out here right now. A couple of people out there came out of that government building to try and have a look at what's going on out here. But there really is no end in sight from when you're standing out here and you're feeling it. You're in the middle of all of it. Really loud gusts of wind and just such a strong force of the rain coming at you really from every single direction. It takes some real effort out here to try and stand on your feet because you really are getting blown all over the place. And you can see there it goes again. There's another gust of wind, and they just sort of seem to ramp up every 30 seconds or so, every 15 seconds or so. Again, we're able to stay safe out here, even though we're in these adverse conditions. We've got a few buildings sort of around here that are giving us some cover, but you got to watch out for flying debris. Again, that's why we're wearing the safety goggles. We're going to continue to give you updates from here. One other important note, Pinellas County EMS and police and fire, a lot of those rescue crews are off the roads right now. They too are seeking shelter, so keep that in mind. The 911 response will not be the same as normal. And there comes another massive gust of wind. We're going to try to hang on. For now, we'll send it back to you.
Simon, stay safe out there. What's cool about those goggles is that he could use them for Halloween in a couple weeks too.
Something. And actually, this is something that when you're talking about hurricane coverage, reporters have been wearing those now for probably the last year or two. Something that you didn't used to see before. But trust me, you need them out there. It's actually a safety thing.
I mean, and truly, when we saw even Michael Paluska down in Charlotte County, he couldn't even open his eyes because the wind and the rain was just so harsh. So I'm teasing Simon, but I mean, really, you got to protect yourself, especially when you're in literally hurricane force winds out there.
Yeah.
I want to go to Dennis for a second and just find out what the latest is as far as who's getting the strongest. Is it still Polk County?
No, it isn't. I'm texting my neighbor to see if my house is still okay.
Not a bad idea.
Well, I've got just a lot of trees. And when I was talking to that, when we were talking to that girl in Polk County, and she's
not a bad idea.
Well, I've got just a lot of trees. And when I was talking to that, when we were talking to that girl in Polk County, and she said she left because of all the big trees around her house. And I think a lot of folks did, because there was that fear, maybe not that your house was going to be destroyed by the hurricane, but that a big tree would fall down while somebody was there, while your kids were in their room, because you just never know. And to me, that was my biggest fear, because there's an app that you can have them let you know when the power goes out and when it doesn't. And as we said, there's close to 900,000 people without power. In terms of the heaviest wind right now, a lot of it is over the bay itself. I'm looking at this. It extends pretty much from the bay northeast through Tampa into Temple Terrace, and then northwest across Pinellas County. And I'm going to show you something. Go ahead and keep it on this shot, because look at how the rain has ended for most of Manatee County and most of Sarasota County. And the heaviest rain is Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus, right? That's for the time being. But look out in the Gulf and see there's rain bands that are out there. And while they're winding down, as this storm continues to move north, I think those additional bands will kind of re-energize, just like they are in Fort Myers, and there'll be some more rain. So I do still think there's going to be a second wave, but nothing close to what we've had so far. So you can say most of the measurable rain is over, but look at these wind gusts. This is current wind gusts. Bartow, 76 miles an hour. So Bartow is getting hurricane-force wind gusts right now, or at least at last report. I take that back. This is when the OBS came out. There'll be another one coming out in about 2 minutes. Tampa, 51 mile an hour wind gust. St. Pete, 48. Lakeland, 66. Wauchula, 43. Myakka was 9 at that point. So clearly things calmed down pretty quickly. These are all wind gusts across the area. And I still think some of the heavier winds right now are going to rotate back into eastern Pinellas County over the next 20 minutes or so. What I'm looking at is a radar loop that's different from the one that you're seeing on TV, and if you're listening on the radio. Now, Andrea is in Polk County, and there's no doubt Polk County has had the worst of it in terms of what we've seen on radar. But let's go to Andrea and see what she's actually seeing out in real life. What do you got, Andrea?
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see or hear from you guys that this isn't the strongest part of the storm anymore because it is still whistling outside. We actually came downstairs into the lobby where they have these ropes tied off in the door because they do not want people going outside right now. And it's probably hard for you guys to see, but shining this flashlight outside, there is a ton of debris outside. We've got leaves, branches, and this is an area where, you know, there isn't really there's an overhang, so things had to have been blown back here. The wind is still going pretty strong. I don't know if you guys can see it out there or not. It's just kind of poor service at this point, but we're still hearing a lot of wind, a lot of things crashing around outside. The howling, for a first-time hurricane goer, this is pretty impressive for me. So I want to walk around and show you we're in a dark lobby. A lot of people are coming down here right now to seek shelter. I think we had a few people down here. Sorry, losing light here. The power is out. Sir, do you mind if we talk to you quick just about, you know, what your feelings are so far?
Yeah, it's just strong, and we're just trying to get through it, and, you know, that's it. We're all just trying to get through this and just hope it hurry ups and passes away. So,
have you been through a storm like this before?
No, this is my first hurricane.
What have you been experiencing this time so far, and tell us why you are seeking shelter in this hotel?
Shergill is a good hotel. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of a speechless feeling right now out here. It's completely dark. The power went out probably about an hour ago already. I don't know if we have a generator in this hotel or not, but they have every door out here kind of just roped off for the safety of the people that are staying here, you know. So we're expecting these winds for at least another few hours, I suppose, the strongest of them. But we'll get back to you guys and show you some stuff soon.
All right, Andrea, thank you. And we want to go back to these pictures that we showed you from earlier tonight. Lakeland Fire posting them just after 7:30. They say a tree fell on this house on Magnolia Street West. 8 people were displaced because of this. 4 went with family and friends after this. 4 had to go to a shelter. No injuries, though, reported from those pictures that you're seeing right there.
And speaking of Lakeland, let me just say this, that Polk County Sheriff's Office just reporting that a Lakeland electric power pole toppled over on top of a sheriff's vehicle. Ooh. Thank goodness the deputy was not injured, but Lakeland Electric is now en route to the scene. But again, an electric power pole toppled on top of a sheriff's car. The deputy was not injured, but they're now going to the scene to make sure that they can clear, obviously, the roads. We also want to report that ABC News is just reporting 5 deaths so far here in Florida. I imagine, unfortunately, that number might go up as we look at what happened in the Florida Keys if people did not evacuate because they really got pummeled down there. Yeah. But 5 deaths so far here in Florida because of Hurricane Irma.
They're going down to the Keys tomorrow to go and assess the damage there. They say that, it's search and rescue essentially at that point. They know some folks stuck behind. You're looking at pictures from New Tampa as we're talking here. But, the search and rescue is going to start down there in the Keys. 5 deaths so far. Don't forget anything that happens from this point on that might be attributed to this storm. That would be, for example, power goes out, intersection lights go out, and there's a car crash because of that. The intersection lights going out. If there's a car accident and somebody dies in that, they actually
They count that as a death. Absolutely.
As a total to this. So that number could go up when it comes to IRMA as we're looking at circles.
This is in Apollo Beach. This is in Apollo Beach, and I want to mention too that the relief from military planes are going to be coming in tomorrow morning as well. They're going to be surveying the damage in the Florida Keys, searching each home. They said to see if other people need help at this point.
Yeah, some folks stuck around there, and they were pretty proud to say that they were going to stick around down there, and they got leveled pretty.
Interesting to see the damage in Marco Island too, right, Dennis? As that was ground zero, that was truly where the eye came ashore. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, interesting to see the damage in Marco Island as well. I'm sorry, Chris. What did you say?
Sean Daly.
Sean Daly is out.
He's upstairs.
So he's out across from Raymond James Stadium. How's it looking there? No games behind you, but at least the weather's calmed down.
You know, it has been calming down a little bit. We still have those bands up there of the rain and the wind going across. But, you know, we had some viewers reach out to me and ask. They didn't see it, but the saga of the swinging stoplight is over. It did fall, and these people, 2 people, emerged from. You should have bet me money on that. You were right. The stoplight did fall, but as you can see,
I think I said 30
as you can
minutes,
see,
and
guys,
it happened within the 30
the wind
minutes.
here. You should have bet me like $100. You'd be $100 richer right now. But anyway, you could just using those stoplights as an example. The wind is well, here it goes again, right? It's starting up again, but the wind's kind of slower over there. But these trees right in front of Frank. These trees all night have been kind of quiet, and now we're seeing them kind of act up a bit. So maybe that's what, there you go, right there on cue. That's maybe what Dennis is talking about. We got these shifting winds, too. So this is the first time they've really been active. So, again, the rain's everywhere and the wind's still pretty much everywhere. Back to you guys.
Yeah, at least the lights have come back on. I know that, I think it was Justin was on top of it, and all the lights across the street were out, but they've since come back on, so that's good news.
Yeah, you've got to remember, too, you know, we're seeing certain spots just like that and not seeing that much wind, but there's still some folks in our viewing area that are trying to sleep tonight, and they're having a hard time doing that because the wind is still howling outside their house, and hopefully everything's going
Where is this, Chris? What are we looking at? Oh, this is still North Tampa. Yeah.
As you're seeing the wind blow around there in North Tampa, right around Dale Mabry and Waters as well. Dennis, anything that you're seeing there on radar?
I wanted to ask you, Dennis, is it gone down to a Category 1?
No, it's still Category 2.
It is Category 2.
I'm still looking at stuff, and I'm looking through Facebook to try to find, because there's a lot of information on Facebook, people saying who's got the worst. Some of these posts are great. This one, fences down and I'm losing at Yahtzee. So so, you know, a lot of people are trying to make the most of the fact that they have no power, that they can't sleep because it's just way too loud outside. So it's down to board games, which I think is great. But seriously,
old school, you know?
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, and the more that I look at these, most folks are reporting no power. There are a few fortunate ones like Jameson who actually says that you still have power.
Still have power, yeah.
Where you are. But overall, the tone, even though looking at Polk County, and that's what I'm afraid of. I really think, as Andrea said earlier on when she said, when we get to sunrise tomorrow morning, we think we're going to see a lot of damage. I continue. In fact, if we can pull the video, guys, anytime in the near future, we haven't run this in a while. There's the drone video of Naples that was hit this afternoon, and that is unbelievable because, and I'm sure they can find it over the next couple of minutes if we're staying, because, yeah, that video is what we could have seen here.
And what we kind of expected to see.
You know what? I don't disagree with you. Yeah. The Hurricane Center yesterday at 11 o'clock last night, here it is. No, this is the Bay video. I'm talking actually about the video in Naples. The video, there's a drone video, it was on ABC News, that actually showed the aftermath of the center of this storm when it had winds of 142 miles an hour moving inland. And that was, it's on Facebook. I just happened to see it, and it's
Wendy and I put it on our pages.
Yeah.
I know.
It's sobering.
I was going to say, it's on my page if we can pull it up on TV.
It's up on my page too, yeah, whatever. Just it is good video.
It is. It's great video.
It's sad video because you're seeing these homes that are...
And it should make our area so incredibly thankful that that could have been us. And as Jameson said, maybe should have been us because over the last 24 hours, originally, even last night at this time, that path was 15 miles west of the coast, which means the storm would have stayed intense, the eye would have been over the water, and it would have gone right up the coast, and everybody from the coast to 70 miles inland would have had winds of 120 to 140. And right now, the highest winds that we're even seeing at all was about 95. And those are gusts. So category 2, so, and I'm sure we'll show you this video, but I'm looking at it right now in some other places. Landfall was at Marco Island at 3:35. Things have really quieted down in the southern half of our viewing area right now. And then it went. After Marco Island and in Naples about 20 minutes later.
About 40 seconds in, it ends up going to the drone video and showing you some of the destruction down there in Naples.
But this is what could have happened in our area. And like Jameson said, I don't know. I expected something maybe not quite this bad, but comparable for part of the area.
And I remember listening to this before I posted it, and I know, Dennis, I know you hate the term, sounded like a freight train, but it sure did.
Technically, that's a tornado, not a hurricane, but this really could have been a giant tornado in a sense, because the winds were every bit as strong.
This is the water.
It's the water.
Is unbelievable.
And of course, it's buffering, so it's frozen at this moment. But Dennis, something that's interesting here, because I've been thinking about this. This storm was so massive and so powerful for so long and did so much damage. Are you surprised that this kind of, in a lot of ways, just crumbled once it hit Florida in a lot of ways? I mean, obviously the Keys and Naples got a lot of damage, but it's like falling apart and just weakened.
Yeah, there's that video. Nothing surprises me when it comes to the Tampa Bay area and hurricanes. I mean, from the point that I've heard we have Indian burial grounds that keep them away, to people in Tarpon Springs.
These are theories.
Yeah, no, they really are.
People
in Tarpon Springs pray to St. Nicholas and to keep the hurricanes away. There are all these reasons, and we have a guy that we work with who for the last 20 years, he always says Tampa just doesn't get hurricanes. And the last 3 or 4 days, well, we did get one, obviously, this time. And folks in Polk County tomorrow morning, when we wake up, we're going to be seeing some of the damage. But this here is what I think a lot of folks were so emotional about the last few days.
We thought we all would look like this by the end. I know I did. I mean, I when we thought that track was coming right over at that speed, certainly we did. And I have some late breaking news in my little area of South Tampa. I still have electricity.
Wow.
Because we're checking on a camera that we have outside of our little doggy door for our dog, and it's still on, which means we still have electricity.
Awesome.
So I don't know if all of South Tampa is like that, but, just to show you, not all of Hillsborough County is out. So good sign.
And hopefully, the fact that things are really winding down quickly south of I-4 in terms of the wind. But now comes the question about the surge, because I'm looking, in fact, if you can see behind Wendy and Jameson, the winds that are coming around now are just about to go out of the more westerly direction for the bay. And that right there is going to be when we start seeing water coming back. The water is going to come back. The bay will not remain dry.
Right.
The question is, how fast will it come back? And how deep will it get when it comes back?
I mean, we're not making it sound like this is turning into nothing, because obviously folks are still trying to sleep and get some rest tonight, and they're hearing this thing howl outside their windows and doors. And so this is still something that it's got some power to it that could potentially maybe drop down to a 1 here soon. Are we expecting that?
It doesn't look a lot weaker right now than it has in the last hour or two. So, but you're only talking 5 miles an hour. From where it is now at 100, if it went down to 95, it would drop down to Category 1 hurricane. So, 5 miles an hour really doesn't matter. It's more of a category as opposed to the reality, how it impacts our viewers. And right now, our viewers are still being impacted by very heavy winds from Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, and even into central Pinellas and Hillsborough County. Again, we're trying to be kind of descriptive for the radio viewers because we know so many folks out there are listening on radio. But easily the heaviest rain right now, in fact, most of the rain is pretty much right on the Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco County border, northern Polk, and it's all moving north. So at this rate, in a couple of hours, the rains will be over. The winds will linger for a while longer. We're still going to have tropical storm force winds through early on tomorrow morning. And then once we hit sunrise, I think that's when we're going to have to especially focus on Hardee and Polk County, because they're the areas that had winds close to 100 miles an hour.
Okay, we want to go to Pinellas County and see what it's like out there. Sarah Hollenbach is in downtown St. Pete. Sarah, how is it where you are?
I got to tell you guys, it's a lot better from the last time you saw us only about 20 minutes ago. Check it out. This is 2nd Street South, and you can see down there, it's actually looking really good. We're not seeing a whole lot of rain. We're not seeing really any flooding on at least these major streets in downtown St. Pete. And while the wind is still gusting pretty bad, I'm not really seeing any more flickering power down here. So maybe that's a sign that things are getting better. I'm not quite sure if that's too premature to say, but it's looking very much better from our perspective. We're on the 7th floor here of a parking garage. So we're really, we were getting whipped around very bad, but it seems that those winds, at least for now, have started to die down. Now, I know a lot of people here in Pinellas County, though, have lost power within the past hour. I've seen on Twitter a lot of people, thousands of people now out of power, but hopefully maybe those who still have it will be able to keep it a little bit longer. Reporting live here in downtown St. Pete, I'm Sarah Hollenbach, ABC Action News.
Sarah, thank you. We want to go even further south from where you are. We'll head to Sarasota now. Wendy Lane is standing by to see how conditions are out there. Wendy?
Yeah, Wendy, the rain has let up. It hasn't been raining here for quite some time. And everyone in the hotel that we're staying at is asking, is it over? Is it past us? Well, that wind isn't. I know Dennis just showed just a little bit ago, these wind gusts here in Sarasota are still 55 miles per hour, and we can speak for that because it is incredibly gusty and windy out here. It comes in spurts like we've been seeing with everybody else. But that wind, it'll whip you around at times, and it really... it'll hurt you if something comes flying at you. So don't go outside yet. Don't think that this is gone and over with if you're down south seeing that storm is moving north, because if you're even inside like I was earlier in my room in the dark because we lost power at around 6 o'clock here at the hotel, the wind, I mean, the windows were rattling really hard. Even inside now, if you're sitting inside, it's just howling. Yeah. But we talked to somebody a little bit ago, actually our crew, that drove back to the hotel after their shift, and they said it was really dangerous out there on the roads, that there were trees down in the roads, there were light poles down in the roads. So whoever's thinking, hey, this is over, I'm going to go head out and see what it looks like out there, don't go out there. Even though there is, there's no curfew here in Sarasota County, there is in Manatee County, and we're like right on the edge of Manatee County, and we've been seeing law enforcement driving around with their lights on. They will pull you over and ask you what you're doing and possibly give you a ticket if you're out driving around trying to check out what's going on. Plus, it's incredibly dangerous. We showed you a little bit ago. I mean, even just right outside of our hotel, because we're not going far because it's just too windy. But, I mean, there's all kinds of debris, everything just right at our feet laying down. This, we found out, is part of a light that was on this fence over on the other side of the pool and just completely broken into pieces. Now, that light was actually probably about 100 yards away from where we are right now. So it has gone a long ways, and now it's kind of settled in this corner. But we are seeing the wind continue to whip around.
They've been talking about that light for hours.
Are coming from one angle, but they're so strong, even in a corner here, you can feel it almost whip you around like that. So this definitely is not over for people who are in the hotel asking, okay, is it over? Is it okay now? Yeah, it doesn't. The wind is not over here. I know Dennis has been talking about possibly even us getting some more rain with that storm whipping back around. So prepare yourselves for that possibly too if you are out in Manatee and Sarasota counties. In Sarasota, Wendy Lane, ABC Action News.
Wendy, thank you so much. And, you know, Dennis, it just proves she's all the way down in Sarasota and still getting those winds. Just proves how big this storm is and how it's not letting up just yet. Right, Dennis? Because as we talked about, it's just Polk, Pasco, all these other north from there, they're also getting more wind and rain. So we've got a long ways to go before this storm is over.
Yeah, Wendy, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, we're still, even if we don't have hurricane force conditions later on tonight, which we still could, at least for a few more hours, we're going to have tropical storm force winds through the overnight and right on into tomorrow morning. And I'm telling you right now, this is the same cluster that gave winds gusting close to 100 miles an hour in Polk County. And now it is moving into Sumter, eastern Pasco, and eventually into Citrus and Hernando as well. So areas up north that haven't had quite as much to deal with yet, you're fortunate because the storm is definitely weaker right now than it was. So the potential for more wind is a little bit lower, but you still have some very heavy weather, Pasco County northward, and now there are the winds coming in. This is where I'm curious. We're going to start getting some information maybe from Siesta Key, Sarasota, Venice. I'd like, actually, maybe we can make some calls in those areas to see if that water is coming back in, because now would be the time, especially starting, it looks as though just south of Sarasota around Venice and then up to the north. That's when the wind is really bringing back the water into the coastal areas. So that, remember, that coincides with high tide. So that was kind of one of our bigger concerns as well, not knowing how big the surge would be and throwing it along with high tide. But I mean, look at our northern counties, anywhere pretty much from the Pasco-Hillsborough County line through northern Pinellas, northern Polk, pretty much from I-4 northward through the villages, up toward Claremont, back toward most of Citrus and Hernando. This is all rotating back counterclockwise, okay? So these storms that are across the interior counties are going to come back to the beach. They don't have nearly as much wind as they did maybe an hour ago, but they're still, we're talking about wind gusts of about 60 to 70 miles an hour. So this is nothing to sneeze at. Any of this could create more power outages and, of course, trees down and whatnot. So what we're hearing from most folks in the area, a lot of tree branches, a lot of debris, not as many big trees coming down, but there are some, and I'm sure tomorrow morning we're going to be waking up to some trees on some roofs, some roof damage, some blue tarps, but certainly not as bad as it could have been. There's the bigger picture, and like I said, this storm is still massive, and it is still creating very heavy weather. Remember when Justin talked about lightning that he saw from our balcony a few minutes ago? Well, there it is. That's what he was seeing from the storm, maybe about 75 miles east of the East Coast. But these storms have such high cloud tops. I mean, these things are so massive that you're able to see that light along. I mean, in the summertime, you can usually see a thunderstorm over on the East Coast anyway. But when you get something like this, it even makes it more visible when you see that lightning, in addition, of course, to the transformers that are popping as well. So the tornado watch across our area, the majority of the area, has expired, and it did not get reissued. So that's some good news. Current wind speeds right now, winds of about 40 miles an hour. These are sustained, but the wind gusts are the things that we're still watching. Orlando 62, 76 right now in Daytona, the wind speed, and Polk County had most of the wind in the last hour and a half. And let's go to Brenda Lise Gonzalez right now in Polk County with an update on what's going on there. Brenda Lise?
Yeah, we've got really strong wind gusts right now over here. We've heard of reports, they're hearing reports here at the EOC all over the area of downed trees, damage, blown out windows, Bartow, other parts, Fort Meade. They're thinking that the damage is pretty significant so far from what they've heard. So far, though, good news is no reports of injuries here in the area. Take a look. It's hard to stand here right now. This is the worst of it right now. Lakeland police had to rescue a woman and a 10-month-old after they got stuck in a 4-foot ditch. We're hearing reports also of another rescue when a tree fell down at an apartment complex. 8 people displaced. We've shown you those pictures of that damage. Thankfully, no one injured there. Those people are now in shelters or staying with family. But again, we are hearing now reports coming in of significant damage around this area. Back to you, Dennis. Let's go back to this flag just to show you how strong these winds are. Dennis, take a look at this. Huge gusts here, hard to stand. This is the worst we've seen, and again, reports of blown out windows, down trees all over the area right now. Lakeland as well. I've seen pictures and tweets of flooding around Lakeland as well.
Dennis, for those who are watching or listening in Polk County, how much longer will they be experiencing these intense winds?
Well, the rain is ending. They're still right on the southern fringe of what was the eye of IRMA. Now it's just the center because it's no longer an eye. But they probably are going to have this for another hour or so, I'd say. Now, these winds that she's showing, as heavy as they are, still pale in comparison to what they were looking at an hour ago. Those winds, I was thinking that we just saw maybe 65, 70. There were winds close to 100 miles an hour in Polk County when the Weather Service issued the extreme wind warning. And it was a rather large area in Polk County. So that's what concerns me tomorrow morning when the sun rises. We're going to look out there, and I think we're going to see some significant damage, not so much structural damage, but definitely damage from trees down, maybe some windows blown in, that sort of thing. Because when you get to 100 miles an hour, that kind of starts to raise the bar a little bit. Another reason why we were so concerned, because remember, originally, if the track of this storm had stayed just offshore, everybody would have had 100 mile an hour winds and then some. So that's why we were so concerned over the last 24 hours when that track went all the way beyond our coastline and into the Gulf of Mexico. And then you start thinking, well, could it go even farther west and gain even more strength? Because it was just so back and forth for the last 4 or 5 days. Right now, Category 2, expected to be Category 1 by tomorrow morning, which, again, is really only 5 miles an hour lower, but it's actually expected to drop down to 75. So that's just barely a hurricane. So if this forecast verifies, once it's going over Gainesville or maybe just northwest of Gainesville, either in Lafayette County or somewhere around Lake City, I would say this will then become a tropical storm and dissipate pretty much shortly thereafter. It's already having a tough time because you can see the southern half. And for folks listening on the radio, imagine looking at a hurricane that the top half is looking healthy like any other hurricane and the bottom half is gone. So there's a live picture, again, back from Lakeland at the EOC. And there's that wind. I mean, that's wind gusting probably up to about 65, 70 miles an hour. So that's going to continue for at least another, well, in the Lakeland area, probably another 20 minutes or so. There, right there, you can see on radar, there it is. Well, and if you can't see, again, remembering a lot of folks listening, the southern end, the southern flank of this rain extends just about to I-4. So as this goes north, it's going to continue to take the wind away with it. Now, our Maricela Burgos is live. Is she in Citrus County, I believe, right?
Yeah, Dennis, I'm in Inverness specifically, and US 41 is right behind me. You can see, I'm going to show you with my light, just the wind and the trees blowing in the wind. It's raining, obviously, significantly. Let me see if you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me? I'm hoping that you guys can. But we're in this downtown plaza area, and so you can see how much wind activity there is out here and how much rain there is. I think in a couple of hours, once this blows through, we'll be able to assess the damage, go around and show you guys how bad it got here in Citrus County. I know the biggest concern is flooding for them, and so that's going to be what they're going to be watching, at least on the western part of the county as well as the eastern part of the county. But I did want to mention that we were going through the area, and we did notice that there was significant power outages. So I'm going to have to check with the county. I've been calling and trying to check their Facebook page and Twitter accounts just to see if they had any updated numbers. But there's a large portion from what we can tell that does not have power. I mean, behind me it's pitch black. I'm just using my light to try to show you that there isn't light in this section. By the assisted living facility that we're staying at, there is power. So in a couple of hours, we'll be able to talk to the county and check with them to see, you know, what the status is, if there were any injuries. We hope not. We haven't heard of anything. And then just what the game plan is moving forward, because the next thing for them, they told me, is going to be flooding. Reporting live, Maricela Burgos, ABC Action News.
Thanks, Maricela. And Maricela is right here in Citrus County. Tampa, even though it looks as though the rain has ended, the wind certainly hasn't. Our Chris Welsh is live right now in Tampa as the winds really start to pick up. Chris?
Yeah, Dennis, it's funny. It's funny, right as you say that, a couple of minutes ago, I started to feel that rain really dissipate. It's still coming down, but a lot lighter. And then within the last 30 seconds to a minute, we started to feel some more of that rain again. But by and large, it does feel like it's raining a lot less, but those gusts are certainly still coming at us. Just take a look here at the La Quinta where we're staying here. We've actually, just within the last minute as well, we've seen at least 2 transformers flash before our eyes here behind the parking lot. And then another one on the other side, closer to West Waters and Dale Mabry Highway. But you can probably hear the wind as we're standing here in this sort of, the entryway, the drive up to the hotel here. It's probably acting as a bit of a wind tunnel right here. But boy, these are still some of the strongest winds that we've been feeling all night. So I have to say, those winds are certainly not gone yet. And as you mentioned, we shouldn't expect them to be gone yet. But it does seem like the drops, the rain, pounding us less than they were just a few minutes ago.
You're exactly right. I mean, you can see it clearly on radar. The dividing line is just north of you. That is where the heaviest rain tapers off. So if you're listening to us on the radio simulcasting, because a lot of folks are still without power, guys, what was the last report we had without power? I mean, it was what, 600,000, I think?
Yeah, we've got, 200. I'm sorry?
Yeah, so over on the right side here.
We were talking about power outages.
Over 500,000 we were talking about.
At least 500,000, 275,000 TECO, 260,000 FPL, Duke with 250,000, Lakeland over 1,000.
Lakeland has a bunch.
So at least,
actually,
there's, but as we talked about, 500,000 easily.
25,000 in Lakeland, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, 25,000 now.
25,000.
But 275,000 TECO.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And by the way, guys, there's a new tornado watch in effect, not for our viewing area. It's just for the north. So that's just another indication. It actually extends from Gainesville northeast to Jacksonville. So that kind of gives you an indication that the center continues to lift north, and they're still thinking it's going to stay on a due north track, which would take the center over Gainesville probably in 2 or 3 hours as a much weaker storm, but still something that could, probably more like 4 or 5 hours, which would still have a decent impact. So it would go through areas of Sumter County, eventually around Marion County, pretty much right up I-75 if you think about it, and then go right through Gainesville. But focusing in on what's happening right this second, I mean, you can literally cut our viewing area in half. Citrus County, Hernando County, Pasco County, Northern Polk getting very heavy rain. And the heaviest wind is right in Northern Polk and extreme southern Sumter, and also closer toward areas near Orlando and Kissimmee. So all of a sudden, that's still the heaviest rain, or the heaviest wind as well. But when you get closer to our coastline from Pasco County off to the north, that's where the rains are. But it's interesting, you look at Pinellas County, you look at Hillsborough County, yeah, there's some rain out there. Clearly, you've still got a hurricane barreling through the area. But you go into Manatee and Sarasota, the rains are winding down quickly. Now, there still will be bands coming in off the Gulf of Mexico overnight and into tomorrow morning. And until this completely remember how big of a storm it is. So until it completely clears probably the center of the state going into Georgia, then the southern edge will finally be clear, and we're not going to have to worry about any rain anymore. Now, the tornado threat is over, but the storm surge threat is now just beginning. Now, as we said earlier, the Hurricane Center did bump down the potential hurricane, or rather the potential storm surge threat. What was 5 to 8 feet for Tampa Bay is now 2 to 4. So we're just about to the point where we should be getting that wind blowing the water back into the bay. We're not quite there yet. We are around Sarasota, and we are around Siesta Key. And I bring that up because after this storm passed Naples, and the same thing happened in Naples that happened here, all the water got blown out. In an hour and a half, 7 feet came back. So it was not only all of the water that came out, but you add another 3 feet to it. That was the surge that we were talking about. So this is something we're going to have to continue to watch very closely, because the thought of water coming in and inundating an area in the middle of the night when there's in some cases no power, although Jameson and Wendy both said actually some of those areas in South Tampa still actually do have power, and yet 500,000 people still don't. But the live radar continues to show by far the heaviest rain pretty much right along Pasco, Hillsborough County, and off to the north. Now, here are the current wind speeds. And even though the rain, the bulk of, when you look at radar, you could look at this radar and say, man, this is hitting Pasco and Hernando and Citrus. Everybody else is home free because they're not getting much rain anymore. Well, they're still getting wind. Look at Bartow. Last report, 68-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Bartow, 53-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Lakeland, 50 in Haines City, 57 in Avon Park, 55 in Lake Placid, 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts where Sarah was in St. Pete, 59 in Clearwater, 36 in Newport Richey. But yet, Sarasota 55, Bradenton only 10. Clearly, the wind, even though the rain is ending across the area, at least south of Hillsborough, Pasco County, that wind isn't going anywhere. We're going to continue to have very heavy wind even when the rain ends through tomorrow morning. This is Manhattan Avenue, and while the rain clearly is not a major issue, I mean, you're seeing wet roads, obviously, but look at the wind. You can kind of see everything swaying back and forth. I'm thinking you're looking at a wind gust of about 40, maybe 45 miles an hour. So not excessive, but there are plenty of spots right now, most of which in Polk County in eastern Pasco, that we're seeing winds close to hurricane force. Last report of 68 in Bartow is only just a few miles an hour shy of what is hurricane force. Now, current sustained winds is another story. In other words, they have to stay for 60 seconds, a certain period of time, 60 seconds for that amount to be registered as a sustained wind. And their minimal tropical storm in Clearwater at 43, but most of the area about 30 to 40. So what that means to me, what that tells me, is what's happening now is you're getting pushes of energy, pushes of wind, and then it lasts for 2 or 3 seconds, and then it steps back, and you get a little of a break. And then you get another round of it. And you're going to have that all night. So anybody who's trying to sleep, it's quite a challenge because you think that you're getting a break, and then you have more tree limbs or branches fall or things pop up against the window, and you're right back in it. So this is the future path. Hurricane force winds, according to the Hurricane Center, still extend all the way over to the Orlando area. And you'd say, well, I wasn't seeing that, but we're getting 72-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Orlando, too. So even though the intensity of IRMA wasn't as strong as originally forecast, the size certainly was, as hurricane force winds pretty much extend almost all the way across the state. Now, by later tonight into the overnight hours through tomorrow morning, come wake-up time, you're back at 6 a.m. The red area will see some scattered gusts up to 60. This will not, I have no doubt, by 6 o'clock in the morning, it'll be lowered to a Category 1, and the wind field won't be nearly as big or as widespread as it is right now. There'll be some spots that'll have winds gusting up to maybe hurricane force, and then the yellow color is tropical storm force. And look at that. We're still looking at tropical storm force winds across the northern half of our viewing area. So from Pinellas, Hillsborough north, you're still looking at tropical storm force winds, that's 39 to 74, right up until lunchtime. So even though tomorrow morning things will be improving, it's still going to be tough getting around. And there's a live shot. Where do we got from there? Where's that from? From Tampa. So that's easily a 40 to 45-mile-an-hour wind gust. One thing we haven't seen, fortunately, at least in any of our live shots, is the trees coming down. And we've seen those before. But tomorrow morning, we are going to see that in Polk County. When the Weather Service issues an extreme wind risk, that's pretty much as high as it gets. Now, this is the next issue that we're concerned about. The winds are coming back around. The center has passed Pinellas County. And Sarah, this is what we were worried about. Now that water's starting to come back in, yes?
Yeah, Dennis, it really is. We're at Demon's Landing here in downtown St. Pete, and you can see we're finally starting to see a little bit of flooding. Now, luckily, we are only seeing a couple inches, and this is an area that's currently closed off, but this is where you would park and actually, take your boat out or a kayak or whatever it might be here in downtown St. Pete. But also, as we were driving over here, we saw a lot of downed trees, and there's actually a couple palm trees over here that look like they had literally just kind of toppled over in the wind. So we're starting to see a little bit of the flooding and then also a lot of this tree damage. So we're going to walk you over here to these palm trees that we're talking about, but only about, I would say, 2 to 3 inches of water or so that's on the road. And I just talked to Pinellas County, and they said that they're not going to be able to assess any of this damage until about 9 o'clock in the morning. Check out these palm trees. Look at that. These things are just toppled over in the wind, both in the same direction. And look at this. This was actually the root of the palm tree. And you can see how it just kind of fell over here to the right and is now leaning. So that's one of the palm trees that's still trying to hang on. But we saw several down trees, just humongous trees with really big trunks. So that kind of shows you how strong some of these winds are out here. And now we're starting to see just a little bit of localized flooding. St. Pete does have a storm surge warning right now. And this is kind of the first water that we're seeing sort of come up and creep into the downtown area. Reporting live in downtown St. Pete, I'm Sarah Hollenbeck, ABC Action News.
Yes, sir, and I'm afraid there's probably going to be a lot more of that because, this is exactly what we've been saying for the last few hours. Up until you get a west wind, all that water is being pushed out. But now, all of a sudden, it's coming the other way around, and that means we are going to have, the water is going to get pushed back in. At least we're not going to have to worry about additional rain creating more problems. Now, here's a look at the power outages. This is from our app, and you can see across much of the central core of our viewing area. How many again? So this is showing 279,000 people still without power. There you see right there. And it seems like the majority of the area that is showing power outages is from, say, right around Oldsmar, across through areas near West Chase, down to Safety Harbor, east across the bridges, over toward Tampa, down towards South Tampa, and then right along the bay from Apollo Beach down to Ruskin over to Sun City Center. We weren't finished. and then back up to central sections of Hillsborough County and eventually over toward Lakeland. So that is something that we'll continue to keep our eyes on. Hopefully, now that the weather is at least, the rains are ending for Hillsborough and Pinellas and Polk southward, hopefully that will at least get them a little bit better opportunity to get out there. But unfortunately, the wind is still there. Now, is this Brenda Lisa over here on the right?
No, that was still
that's
Sarah.
more of the water coming in, right? Yeah. That's in Largo. Okay, what we're hearing, this is something I think we're going to start seeing a lot of. Anywhere along the coast, and for that matter, right on down into Sarasota. And I really want to find out a little bit more about the Siesta Key, Sarasota, Venice area as well, because down there, I think the surge may be a little bit stronger. The flow in there is, I think, a little bit quicker than what we've had closer to the bay. But now the flooding is going to begin. So how long are we going to have to deal with this? Well, the positive side of it, again, is because the rain has stopped in these areas. So we're not having additional ponding of the roads. So what you're looking at now is nothing more than the Gulf, the water coming back in from the Gulf, being pushed back in, and with that, you continue to see the flooding. So I think that's going to continue to increase over the next several hours. The only question I'm going to have is, will it reach the levels of 2 to 4 or 4 to 6 feet in areas around Bayshore, in areas around Shore Acres, in areas that are notorious for flooding? Now, by far, the strongest winds over the last couple of hours, the worst weather, the most damage is going to be in Polk County. And we've been going back and forth with Brenda Leese in Lakeland, where the EOC is for Polk County, to get an update. And I believe she's live there now with an update. Brenda Leese?
Dennis, the winds just keep getting stronger over here. I want you to take a look here at the hurricane warning flags. Just check that out. That's the worst we've seen them all night here since we've been here for several hours, and you can just see how strong these winds are. It's so hard to stand right now, and I'm underneath an awning right here. I want to show you too, they've actually closed the shutters once again here at the EOC. We were inside for a while. They told us it wasn't safe. Now we've been able to come outside for a bit just to show you what it's like to be out here. And inside there, even with all those windows shuttered, you can still hear these roaring winds. Now the good news is, so far inside the EOC, they're telling us they haven't heard any reports of injuries, but they have heard reports of a lot of damage. We're talking down trees. We're talking a tree that landed on top of an apartment complex, displaced 8 people. A mom and her 10-month-old had to be rescued by Lakeland police. We're also hearing reports of flooding in Lakeland as well, and windows blown out. It's hard to even open my eyes right now. This wind is definitely picking up. Dennis, this is the worst we've seen, and just like Leader said, they've been warning people this whole time about the type of winds that we've been getting. Let's go back to this flag to show you once again.
Hey, Brenda Lise, I've got a question for you.
Out here.
Brenda Lise, are you seeing, is the wind kind of varying in its intensity, or is it pretty much just a steady wind of the same amount? It looks to me like it's kind of gusting and then backing off a little bit and then gusting again.
That's right, yeah. That's exactly right. So you might have a little bit of a calm, but it's still hard to even stand out with that calm. But then all of a sudden you get this huge gust like I personally haven't experienced before, and I'll tell you, I grew up here in Florida and I haven't experienced this type of wind gust so strong just standing out here before.
Are you seeing any trees anywhere around you that look like they might go, or are the winds not quite that bad at this point where you are?
Not quite that bad here where we are, but as I mentioned, just talking over at the EOC with people, they do say that's the biggest amount of damage that they're hearing about right now, down trees around. They say county-wide. They aren't even giving us specific areas. So they're just saying right now, county-wide. Yeah, I mean, there were winds up to 100 miles an hour across that area for about a 90-minute stretch. Now, it does look like the rain is tapering off, though. I mean, yeah, there's some times where it actually looks like it's picking up, but certainly what you were experiencing an hour ago, the worst of that is over with the rain, yes? Definitely, yeah. We're not battling the rain right now. We're definitely just battling the wind.
And I think that's all you're going to have to. The rain is pretty much over. So if you live in Polk County, thank you very much, Brenda Lise Gonzalez, live at Lakeland with Polk County EOC, where they look like they've locked her out. I don't know if she was saying that they closed all the shutters there, and I hope she can get back in because she's kind of little. And those winds were really, really kicking in at about 65, maybe up to 75 miles an hour. The power outage index is still something that we're obviously going to continue to keep our eyes on, because now that our northern counties, Citrus and Sumter and Hernando and Pasco, continue to see very heavy rain, and they eventually are going to see the same kind of winds that we're still seeing now in northern Hillsborough and northern Polk County. I mean, the low is moving north, IRMA is moving north, and that wind is kind of expanding east to west along with it. So if you live in eastern Pasco, if you live in eastern Hernando, maybe even central too, in Citrus, you're going to probably see winds. You're not going to see wind, at least at this point, like the ones that spawned the extreme wind warning. That was a special area. That was a special advisory issued because we saw the Weather Center, the Weather Service in Ruskin saw this area just explode with wind, and they issued that advisory for about 90 minutes. So we're looking back at Manhattan Avenue, Tampa. It's definitely, the rains have ended. The rains have pretty much ended. I mean, there's some scattered showers, but the rains have pretty much ended. Certainly the heavy stuff for Pinellas, for Hillsborough, for Manatee, anywhere down to the south, those heavier rains have ended. The only place left that has to deal with the heavy rains will be Citrus, Hernando, and Pasco and Sumter. But the power outages could likely continue because just because the rains have ended doesn't mean the winds have. See, that's why this is very different from our thunderstorms. I mean, you know, in the summertime, if you're going to get a heavy thunderstorm, you're going to get rain along with it. It just goes, they go together. But with hurricanes, you can sometimes get the wind even when the rain has ended. And that's what's happening now for most of Tampa, most of areas of Polk County, Pinellas, and areas to the south. So the wind forecast still going to remain pretty strong until about 4 or 5 a.m. And then it starts to drop down as Irma heads into North Florida. And then at that point, we're looking at more of an impact on northern areas from Gainesville up toward Jacksonville, and then back even to the south, or rather northwest over toward Tallahassee. So the winds clearly going to be an issue until about lunchtime, and that's what we showed you. The tropical storm force winds forecasted to stay until right around noon, and then all of a sudden after that, we would expect things to begin to wind down, covering at least the northern half of our area from Tampa back to Lakeland, right on across the bay too. In Pinellas County, central and northern Pinellas, we're still seeing some pretty decent wind in there as well. In fact, I'm going to go take a look at live radar in just a second, and I'll be back. Guys, why don't you take it over from here?
All right. We are hearing that Hillsborough County emergency officials are going to be giving us an update on what's going on there as far as probably a curfew still in place and maybe damage, but we're waiting on that. And Dennis mentioned about not just the curfew, but something that he was just talking about, the so much of the power has been out too, and as this storm continues up north, we're hearing more and more power outages.
I want to show you some video that we shot earlier, some video that came into the newsroom. This is transformer blowing here in St. Pete. You can see that power transformer blowing right outside the window of this family's home.
Yeah, and actually,
that's like 4th of July.
I just posted this on Facebook too. You can actually hear the mom tell her daughter to get away from that window.
Wow.
That is just a little too close for comfort. I also posted another video on Facebook that happened in Boca Raton, and it was another transformer that blew up just as first responders were coming on scene along with a news crew to help out a family in need. And they're literally, if you go to my Facebook page, Wendy Ryan WFTS, I also posted that as well. But it looks just like this, and they caught it all on camera, the transformer blowing up right as the news crew and the first responders came up on scene. This is just scary. It's right outside of these
You don't want to see
homes.
that outside your window, do you?
Yes. No, you don't.
Our
You
Justin
don't.
Bruce is standing up live on our roof here at ABC Action News, monitoring the conditions for us all night long. If we go up to Justin, what are you seeing up there?
It's not quite as bad as it was 45 minutes, an hour ago, the last time we chatted, although within the last couple of moments I have seen off to the east of the station, to the east of Ray J Stadium, a couple of transformers blowing, and we know that because it's this bluish, greenish color sort of low in the sky, so that's noteworthy. I wanted to echo what Dennis had been talking about, the fact that the rain has certainly lightened a little bit, but the wind has not really let up. It's a little less frequent than it was an hour ago. I still feel, though, like we're seeing some 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts here in Tampa every few moments. And what that's doing, even though the rain, I should say, isn't incredibly heavy, it certainly has lightened up. The wind is really blowing it around, so it's less intense, but it still feels like it's coming down at a decent clip here in Tampa. Still have power all around where I can see. No trees knocked over here in this part of Tampa, so that is an encouraging sign. As strong as the winds were earlier, pretty impressive to not even, truth be told, see any branches down. So we like the way that things are trending. Although, as the weather team has told us all evening long, we've still got several hours of very strong winds to deal with. Hopefully the hurricane force winds going to be dying down in the next couple of hours as the center of circulation pulls up to the north-northwest, and it's going to be until lunchtime tomorrow before we can give you the all clear with respect to tropical storm force winds. But a little better than it has been. Still think we've got a couple more hours, though, where we just sort of cross our fingers, hunker down, and hope for the best.
All right. Stay safe out there.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go up to Citrus County now.
Maricela Burgos
was.
Is she ready for us?
She's not ready.
Well, I will tell you, in Citrus County, there's a curfew in place, and they're not the only ones. Pasco, Polk, Hillsborough also. Maricela, I hope people are heeding the warning. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, in Citrus County. Heeding the warning in regards to the curfew. You don't see people around. Yeah. Folks aren't driving around, are they?
You know, No, I haven't seen any cars, but I did see a woman walking just down the road, which was shocking to me. And then there was another gentleman that stopped by and told us that there was a tree that had gone down, and so we were trying to check it out, but there were cones blocking that area. We're actually standing here underneath an awning here at the assisted living facility. We've got Carrie here, the owner. Thanks so much for letting us stay. You said you've been through a hurricane before. What has this been like in comparison? I think you said to Hurricane Charlie, right, in 2004?
Yeah, 2004, actually, when we first bought the property, and we were in the middle of construction, and I lost my whole crew because they had to go up to Pensacola to help everybody up there. But yeah, this is pretty much what it was like then, to be honest with you.
How are the residents dealing with this? Because I know it can be nerve-wracking, during a situation like this.
A little bit different, because back then I was empty, still building. Now I've got 40 family members that I have to take care of here, which is our first concern. And our location, like they say, location, location, location. We're 2 blocks from the hospital, so if we need anything, we're pretty well set with that. We're set with equipment here, anything we need. We were able to take in other families that weren't as fortunate, had either mobile homes or were on the coastline and had to evacuate off of 19 area. So we're approximately 25, 30 miles in from the actual Gulf. So we're not really considered a wind zone, but actually right now we are.
And at some point hours ago, you had a meeting with the residents and you were reminding them of, the emergency plan that you have in place. How important was it to talk to them, to let them know you're here for them? You guys are going to be okay. Talk about that, because you probably spoke to them for maybe 10, 15 minutes. They were asking you questions as well.
Yeah, it's something we plan for. I do 6 drills every year, 6 to 8, which is actually mandatory by the state, and go through our evacuation plan and, different scenarios of what may happen, and if it does happen, what to do. Of course, in this case, stay away from the windows, make sure the doors are unlocked so that we can check on you constantly. If you need anything, please get assistance from us in order to make it a safer environment for them. It's pretty much common sense at this point, but I have triple staff on, quadruple staff on. I've probably got a good 10 employees on here right now, just for this purpose. So.
Well, thank you so much for letting us stay here as well. We truly appreciate it. But you can see it's still windy out here, significant rain, and so hopefully everybody will stay safe here tonight. Back to you.
All right, Maricela, thank you.
Come and give you a brief update of what we're seeing and kind of what we're thinking about as we get here until later.
You're listening in live right now to the Hillsborough County emergency officials here giving us an update.
Winds blow out here with the gusts well over 50, so we're still not responding to those emergency calls right now, but of course as soon as the winds get better, they die down, we're going to be hitting the streets as soon as possible to get out there. And if there is any backlog in the 911 calls or calls for service, we're going to be making sure that we get to those as quickly as possible. But the storm is moving past over the next few hours, and the conditions should improve. And we're going to be out there as soon as we can. We're going to be looking at the damage that we've received from the winds that we're seeing. Fortunately, they didn't come in as high as they could have with the storm of this magnitude. We feel very fortunate at this time. But we do want to remind the citizens as we start getting up later in the morning, we want to remind them to exercise caution. To make sure that we're getting out there. We're going to be getting out and looking at areas that have received damage. We know we did get some wind. We know we did get some rain in our area. It's not done yet, and so we will be dealing with any issues that we see in terms of flooding, any issues that we see in terms of wind damage, and responding to the needs of the citizens of this county. I really want to commend the citizens for taking this, serious. We had an unprecedented number and have an unprecedented number of folks in shelters right now. That's going to be one of the The biggest missions that we have is really making sure that we get the damage assessment done and look at the areas that we need to respond. But folks are going to be wanting to go back home as soon as they can, and we're going to want them to make sure that they're cautious, not going out there if lines are down, if there's debris in the roadways. We really want them to be cautious. And just take their time getting back out there. But we still have a few hours to go with these dangerous winds that we're dealing with right now. But we're ready to go. We, of course, had equipment and personnel staged all over the county just to be ready to go, and we're still going to respond out there and see what we got and be ready to assist anyone in need. Any questions for me?
Do you know how many 911 calls you guys have received so far that may be in the backlog?
Right now, we're assessing exactly what we have. I haven't gotten that information yet, but as soon as I get it, then I'll be able to pass it on to you guys.
Reports of damage, I know you haven't had people on the roads, but
right.
Phone calls, anything about fires, anything like that?
Nothing to that degree coming in other than the usual suspects. The wind damage that we're seeing, you see trees down in the community. We're going to have some power lines down. We have power outages here in the community. Those things we expect, again, without seeing the highest of the high winds that we could have seen with a storm of this magnitude. Very fortunate at this time, but still, when you have winds that are pounding us for the number of hours that we've seen and are still to see, we're still going to have some of those damages. And there's going to be some impacts for folks. We're going to have some damages to some structures, I'm sure, and folks are going to come out and want to really go out and assess what it's looking like. We just want them to take caution. We don't want people getting hurt after the fact, after you survive the storm, then go out and get hurt. We don't want that either.
Were there reports of any injuries? Did anyone get hurt? Did anyone go outside?
We've not got a significant amount of injuries reported to us yet. Doesn't mean that we won't see them. That's why we're trying to get ahead of that and just say, hey, we're not done with the wind blowing yet. When you do go out there, we really want you to exercise caution, but don't go out there until we tell you it's time to go out there, really, when this wind stops blowing and when it's really safe to do so. And we're going to continue to communicate with the citizens. We know how anxious some of our folks are going to be to get out there and see what's going on. We get it. We just want them to take their time. We're going to get out there as soon as we can as well to assist anyone that really has a need.
Do we have any idea how many homes are without power at this time?
We haven't got the latest report from TICA right now, but we're working on getting those numbers right now as well. Again, we just finished a conference call with the National Weather Service and got the latest information. And again, we're still blowing at 40-mile-per-hour winds, sustained with gusts well over 50. In certain areas of the county, 6 or more inches of rain have fallen. So we know that we have the impacts here in the community. We just don't know exactly how bad. It's still blowing very bad, in areas surrounding us, and so it's not done yet. So we really are ready for those winds to die down so we can get back on the street.
Is there still a concern about storm surge?
Well, we were looking at storm surge coming in following these winds, and it was going to be up to that 9-10 feet level. Well, fortunately, from what we're hearing now, from 1 to 2 feet possibly is the storm surge amounts right now, which is definitely significantly less, which we're fortunate to hear that, and we're pleased about that.
And you also talked about shelters, and I believe yesterday the number was 21 or 23,000. Did that number, the number of people in shelters in Hillsborough, go up?
I have to say that again, we're very proud of the citizens of Hillsborough County for heeding the warning and taking the threat of this storm very serious. We've sheltered nearly 30,000 people in this county, which is a number that we have not seen in this community before. And that's really just due to folks taking the messages that we were giving out serious, looking at a storm that was as big and potentially dangerous as this storm was. And again, it's not over yet. It's not over yet, but really taking it serious and getting to areas that are safe, and not only to shelters, but to just out of the evacuation zone. That's really what we wanted to see the most, and to get out of those most dangerous areas into safe areas and go to a shelter if needed. We're just fortunate enough to have the team that we have here that's still working around the clock to make sure that we're ready to be able to open the shelters, to have them ready to go, to staff them, and then to have a safe location for these folks to go. So it's truly a team effort, and very proud to be a part of the team and a part of this community. Again, let's take caution when we get out there this morning. We're not there yet. The winds are still blowing, and we want to make sure that we take our time getting out there and be safe. Okay?
When is the next official briefing? Tomorrow morning.
Okay, you've been listening to the Hillsborough County Emergency Operations Center talking about the conditions still being very treacherous and dangerous out there with 50 miles an hour wind gusts. 40 miles sustained, and so they're keeping their first responders and fire rescue in-house. They are not responding to emergency calls until those winds slow down, and so they're safer because they don't want to put the first responders and their fire rescue in harm's way. So he was just reiterating the fact that, listen, we can't go out there yet. We have to wait until these winds subside before we can risk our people's lives to save other people. Polk County, Pasco County also giving that same warning that they are not sending their first responders. He also talked about the curfew still being in place, the fact that he wants to keep people home, sheltered before they go out. They want to survey the damage, make sure that the streets are safe. So please don't go and go into parts of Hillsborough County until it's much later, of course, after 6 a.m. where the sun has risen and it's safer for you to go out there.
Yeah, and our folks are obviously still sheltered because we have people reaching out on our Facebook page saying, you know, we're here, we're still hearing wind, we're still hearing the rain out there, especially they're talking about Pinellas County, some folks in Citrus County as well, some of the northern counties, and we know that those bands are moving that way. Some of the stronger winds are also heading in that direction. Shay Ryan is standing over there at the Weather Center for us to kind of give us an update on what's going on with the winds out there and the rain.
Still very dangerous, right, Shay?
Yeah, in fact, I just got a note on my Facebook page from a viewer in Clearwater, and they were saying that they're just now getting some of the strongest winds that they've seen all day. So what we're seeing right now is the 2 a.m. update, 85 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. So IRMA is definitely weakening, also starting to pick up a little bit of forward motion, moving to the north-northwest at 15 miles per hour. So it will continue to weaken as expected as it continues to move north. So by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll be down to about 75 mile per hour winds. And then as it crosses over into Georgia, will become then a tropical storm and continue to dissipate in the days ahead. So as we're looking here at what's going on the radar, I want to show you, this is the center of the system. And this line right here, this is the path that IRMA has taken as it's been moving across our counties. So now starting to make that movement over to the north-northwest. You can still see the heavy bands of rain that are extending out into Orlando on the northeast side of the storm. And then this heavy rain moving across Hernando and into Citrus County, all of Sumter County, so I-75 going north. And then those winds still around it, even though the rain is starting to let up in Pinellas County here, we're still getting the wind coming around it that's quite gusty. So as we look, this is generally where the center is. It's crossing over the I-4 line, and you can see here that we're drying out in the center and then also farther to the south. Our heavy bands of rain right now are moving here across Dade City. This is where you would also expect to have some very gusty winds along with it. And then also farther to the north as we're getting toward Crystal River and into Inglis, that's another really heavy band here that you would also expect to have some extremely gusty winds along with it. And again, even around Sugar Mill Woods into Floral City, some pretty heavy rain coming down there. There is that line there around Inglis. Again, with that heavy rain and very gusty winds. This is all rotating in that counterclockwise motion, just as you'd expect. Take a look at south of the center of the system. We're still seeing plenty of rain moving through South Florida into the Keys, and all of this is going to continue wrapping around. So even through the day tomorrow, we'll continue to see chances for rain as this lifts north because it's got this long tail here to the south of it. So we're going to see the winds letting up, but it'll still be gusty overnight. Take a look at how the Futurecast shows these showers and storms moving through, and you can see by, what is this? 11 o'clock in the morning, hard to see here. 11 o'clock this morning, we're just seeing those hit or miss showers, some moderate downpours, but nothing incredibly heavy like the bands that have been going through here over the last several hours. And this continues even into early afternoon. It's real hit or miss. Let's check in with Heather Lee right now in Palm Harbor.
Hey guys, so I was just about to say, oh, things are getting better over here in Pinellas and Palm Harbor, but no, I don't think so. We're getting a lot of wind gusts all of a sudden. Then again, we are kind of right in the path of where this wind is traveling, so the wind gusts are definitely still strong. In between the gusts, though, it seems to have calmed down a little bit. We were talking about power this whole night, and it's still on across the street. In case you were wondering, it is still on across the street. However, we still have, in the very near areas to where this garage is, we have seen some of the power transformers blow up. We've seen the flashing lights, and we've probably seen about 5 just in the near area that we are around us. So power is going out. I can't believe that this power over here is still on, but hey, who am I to complain? It's great light for us. Anyway, so we're talking about the conditions out here. They still are relatively gusty and whatnot, but I think we're kind of on the tail end of it. I just have that feeling because, like I said, right before you guys came to me, it felt relatively calm aside from those gusts. So I do think we are on the tail end. I have not been able to go out and see if there's any damage aside from that sign across the street here. That sign has taken a pretty big beating, but aside from that, I haven't seen too much damage. I've seen some tree limbs fall, but that's about it. Once we are able to venture out, when it's safe for us to do so, that's when we'll be able to see if there's any real damage or even flooding from storm surge down by Dunedin or even downtown Palm Harbor as well. I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you guys for now.
All right, Heather, are you noticing that there's more time in between the gusts?
Yeah, it seems like that. I mean, we had just a few of them over the last 5 minutes, but right before that, still, it was fine. And we were just talking about, oh, it seems to be going down. So I do think there is more time between the gusts.
All right. Yeah, as we're taking a look here at, thank you so much, Heather. And as we're taking a look at the wind speeds, the wind gusts across the area, you can see around Clearwater, so she's just north of that, 59-mile-per-hour gust here being reported. Around Tampa, 45, St. Pete, 55. We look inland, Bartow is still seeing wind gusts above 60 miles per hour. Around Avon Park and into Lake Placid, still in the mid-50s. So even though the center has crossed I-4, or at least the north side of it has, we're still getting those gusty winds here circulating around the storm. So expect that as we go into, well, now we're in the overnight, the early morning hours through Monday, and we're going to continue to see those gusty winds even on the backside of this system. You can see Crystal River with those 52-mile-per-hour gusts. The sustained winds across the area are closer to the tropical storm level here around Avon Park into Lake Placid, Wauchula at 36 miles per hour, and sustained winds right now in Clearwater at 43 miles per hour. So this is again on that northern side or even the northwestern side of the center of the storm as it continues to move off to the northwest. So no longer moving due north. It's starting to make that turn just a little bit farther to the northwest. Now, as we look at those wave heights again, we're still anticipating as we get closer to our high tide this morning that we're going to see some storm surge. But what's really great, if you happen to miss this earlier, is that the storm surge potential has decreased from what we were looking at prior to the storm's arrival. So it appears that negative storm surge that happened as IRMA north 2 to 4 around Tampa Bay and then 3 to 5 feet south of Tampa Bay. As we look at those tide times, we're looking at reaching the high tide in Clearwater around 3 o'clock in the morning and St. Pete around 5:25 and Sarasota just after 4 o'clock this morning. So again, we'll see at that point how much of an impact that storm surge starts to have as that water starts filling in. And take a look at this. Finally, we're seeing the numbers starting to go down in the hours ahead. We're looking still at some very strong wind gusts all the way through till just after sunset. And then we start in Tampa to see those wind speeds coming down a bit. It's still going to be breezy tomorrow with some gusty winds, but those sustained winds at least coming down past the tropical storm level after 7 o'clock in the morning. And As far as the rainfall goes, yeah, things are going to continue to be nasty for several more hours, and we'll have that hit or miss rain rolling through. But once we get into tomorrow afternoon, you see those rain chances are much lower. So we are going to see some improvement there. But again, as we're looking at IRMA right now, the bulk of the heavy rain has now lifted north of I-4. We're still going to see more coming around it, and but the heaviest rain is from Hernando County into Citrus, Sumter County, and that very gusty wind associated with those heavier downpours still now north of I-4, but we'll continue to have more of that wraparound rain as we continue over the next several hours. But you can see Claremont getting that heavy rain and the gusty winds right now. That's also moving in the direction of Leesburg and across I-75. This is all going to be rotating across that way as it's going again in that counterclockwise motion. So from east to west across that area. Now, as we take a look a little closer in, you can see how heavy this is coming across 27 into Winter Garden. And then things starting to calm down a little bit, at least as far as the rain goes around Polk City and across I-4 into Haines City. Things starting to quiet down there with rainfall, but those winds are going to stick around here for a little while. Again, that update, 85 mile per hour maximum sustained winds now moving off to the north-northwest at 15 miles per hour. So it has picked up some forward motion. You can see it looks a lot more ragged here in the satellite image than it has throughout the day. So we're starting to see it weakening and coming apart to some degree as it continues to move off to the north. And as we take a look here at the path, it's going to continue on that northerly path, maintaining Cat 1 status here as it tries to get out of state by early tomorrow morning. And then once it does cross over into Georgia, we're looking at a tropical storm. Again, we'll continue to bring some rain to the north, and we will continue to see those gusty winds, even some tropical storm force winds into mid to late morning throughout tomorrow. Guys? Jameson?
All right,
back to
thank
you.
you, Shay.
Thank you, Shay. And obviously this thing's not over yet because you saw Pinellas County. They're still getting those wind gusts, those high 50s. They're still dealing with that tonight. Dennis,
I don't think he wants to answer that right now.
No, they were, you know, those wind gusts still happening there in Clearwater. St. Pete as well.
Right, Pinellas, Hillsborough County. There's been a lot of folks are still experiencing some major winds, and as we heard from the Hillsborough County EOC, because those sustained winds are over 40 miles an hour, they're not even sending out their fire rescue and their first responders because it's just too dangerous still. We heard that from Pasco, we heard that from Pinellas, we heard that from Hernando. So if you do have to go to work in the morning, please be careful because as they were talking about, conditions probably will not be safe. There will be trees down in the middle of the road. There will be traffic lights out. There will be debris in the road, and that's why they really wanted to clear the area. All the counties did before people got on the roads to make sure that no one gets injured, because after the storm can be just as dangerous as during the storm.
And I think when the sun comes up tomorrow, you're going to see, especially Polk County, a lot of damage that obviously we can't see in the dark at this point, and we're not allowed to send our crews out searching for it just yet. But we know it's out there. It's when you get winds that we've been talking about earlier tonight, up to 100-mile-an-hour gusts. They're out there. Speaking of wind gusts.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks in Hillsborough County talk about how strong it is. Chris Welch has been riding out the storm near a hotel off of Del Mabry and Waters Avenue. So, Chris, can you tell us what the conditions are now? Looks like they're still bad.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, they are still kind of bad here. You know, we've been waiting for this rain to sort of dissipate a little bit more, and it has dissipated a little bit as we've been out here for the last, hour and a half or so, but it's still coming down. But the winds especially are still coming with force. Take a look at some of these trees over here. I mean, right now we're in probably a little bit of a lull, but, over the last 30 minutes or so, we have still seen some of the largest gusts that we have been seeing all night. There's a little palm tree over here that we've been showing you throughout the night. This has still been waving and blowing in the wind. You've seen it kind of swaying all night long, and it's moving kind of about a foot there in the wind for a while. I had to take the hat off because it was blowing around and just kept flying off. The good news is that, a lot of the people who were out here scoping things out earlier tonight, they are now asleep. I know, we discussed earlier, there's a lot of concern on everyone's mind tonight, obviously, as this storm was heading in with quite a punch earlier today. A lot of people wanted to stay up. They wouldn't be able to sleep with this kind of storm coming through. But, you look up at the hotel, and we do still have power here, and you see very few lights sights on. So it seems like now at this point, now that Irma is moving further north, people may be feeling a little bit more comfortable about going to sleep, at least in this part of town. But again, you know, those winds, the rain, they are still certainly a big part of this storm here, and we are still feeling it here at the La Quinta on West Waters and Dale Mabry.
Thank you, Chris. As you mentioned, you know, a lot of folks are asleep right now, and we heard from the EOC earlier that 30,000 people in Hillsborough County took to the shelters, and that's really great because it just goes to show you that they heeded the warnings that it was not safe to be in an evacuation zone, zone A and B. If they were there, they got to shelters that they needed to be, and they stayed there. 30,000 people just in Hillsborough County alone. It just goes to show you that they really listened, and thank goodness they did, because as we're seeing those winds and the damage already, not good.
They're probably getting a better night's sleep in that shelter than they probably would have wherever else they were.
It's safer. It is safer, absolutely.
As far as the viewing area goes here in Tampa Bay, we've been talking about Polk County because they really have gotten the worst of the winds tonight.
That's right. ABC Action News reporter Andrea Lyon is there with how conditions are right now. Andrea?
All right, we're out here in Polk County, Winter Haven at the Shell Grill Hotel by Legoland to kind of show you where we are. Behind me, we don't want to be out here too long. The winds are still pretty strong, but we've got a lot of debris. We've got trees, branches, berries out here by the pool, a lot of debris in the pool at this point. I've talked to a few people from Polk County. One lady tells me she has a tree through her house at this point. We've also been hearing from Polk County Sheriff's Office that a downed powered line is on top of a sheriff's vehicle. So this is an absolutely serious storm, but our meteorologists are telling us that the worst of it has passed Polk County right now, and by minute these winds are dying down. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, thank you. We now want to go to Wendy Lane. She's south in Sarasota County to see what conditions are out there. But as we just saw in Hillsborough, that it's just so many parts of our Bay Area are still experiencing those winds over 40, 50 miles an hour, which is why the emergency responders, the first responders, are not going out because it's just not safe.
Yeah, and Wendy's down there in Sarasota County, and let's go ahead and check in with her because we know that the conditions down there really were the worst for our viewing area. That's where they really started.
Yeah, a couple hours ago they were really bad, but you're still getting...